Trial has started this week, and it was really funny yesterday morning because there's this City account I follow called City Chiefs, and they were just posting obviously satire, and some people were like getting angry about it when they were saying, "Oh, they've found a fake document already, 1-0 City and stuff." But obviously, there's a big build up. The location is now being put out there. 101 articles yesterday, and some people said, "Why haven't I done any full content on it yet?" It's, well, I want to read the articles first, if I'm being honest. And there's loads of stuff that you read and go, "It sounds really good for City." There's other articles I've read where you go, "Oh, bloody hell, I didn't know that," or "That's something that's new information." How are you feeling about it from a City fan's perspective?
That's really changed, to be honest with you. Like, at the end of the day, we still don't know what's going on because it's all behind closed doors. We've got to wait for the thing. So the fact that it started is good because it means it's coming to an end. But nothing's really changed because we don't know what's going on, behind those walls. So yeah, to be honest with you, man, like no real difference. The only
Do you
thing
have
is
any
I'm kind of
expectation, OLB? Do you have any? Because like for me, when people talk to me about 115, one, I don't know enough about it, and I'm not really interested in reading about it. But so I don't really answer too much questions on it. But do you, as a City fan, do you have any kind of expectation about what you think the outcome might be? I know we're not going to find out potentially till like next season, but what are you as City fan base right now? Are you like, we believe our club, we haven't done anything wrong, or are you just like, who knows?
Well, who knows? Yeah, because this is unprecedented, right? I think the outcome will be 100% will get fined for the non-cooperation, which will be a fine because it's not sporting. For the fraud aspects, don't know. Can the Premier League prove fraud? I mean, the problem is we only have the evidence which has been leaked. We don't have the other evidence that the Premier League might have or might not have. Maybe the evidence have more. Maybe the Premier League have more evidence that we've not yet seen. Maybe they don't. We don't know what City's defense is, which is quite important in this matter. So we've only got really the emails to go off, and obviously the stuff that happened at the Court of Arbitration for Sport. But this is slightly different. It's got more to it. It's more complex. More stuff's been leaked. So I don't know. I'd still be surprised if City got kicked out of the league, just because I think to prove the fraud, they've got to prove that a lot of people have been lying. And and I did a stream on it yesterday. If you look through the arbitration document when we went to CAS, the level of CEOs that did a statement for the Court of Arbitration for Sport to say this is not true. This is not true. If the Premier League prove that City did commit fraud, you've also proved that all those people lied in the Court of Arbitration for Sport, which might have happened. I'm not saying it didn't. I'm just saying to accuse those level of people of doing that, I'm like, it would be one of the biggest things
they won't kick you out of the league. They'll potentially give you like a huge points deduction, which
I think so as well. If we got found guilty, I think it'd be like 100-point deduction.
Yeah, and I think what they would do as well, if it was that bad, it might be like 100 points, but I think they would stagger it over 5, 6, 7 seasons, because I also think you've got to understand that.
I heard that. They said that yesterday.
I don't think they do that, bro. I don't think they do that.
They might not, but the reason why I think they could is just if your owners stay as well, by the way, you being put into League Two makes a mockery of League Two because you're going to win it at a canter. And is it really fair on all the teams in that league that are kind of nothing to do with this? I almost feel there's an element of they keep you in the Premier League, but say you got a 20-point deduction every season for 5 years. You're not winning the league. You might get into like the lower level European stuff. But then it's because I think what they've also got to do, and this is me being fair, if you're guilty, you may not be. I also think they've got to try and protect the future of Man City as a club, because like we were saying earlier, if this is true, City fans ain't done this. The legends of City haven't done it. The football club in itself is an arbitrary object, an inanimate object. It's the current custodians that have done it. They need to be very careful that they don't put City into a position where the club theoretically could go out of business, because that for me is not a punishment that is suitable for the fans of the football club. So I think it's really wide open. And I think what you said about the evidence is so true, because I've followed some really great threads, and I'll put them in the group chat later. I think they're really worth a read. And I was actually talking to Nobbins earlier today about you and him. And I said, like, you are probably the two best City fans I've ever had conversations with about this, because you're not precious about it in the sense of you understand people are asking questions. You understand that there's two sides to a story. You back your club, but you understand there's two sides to a story. And these threads are brilliant because it's just two lawyers that are literally for about a year have been going at each other quite politely about their interpretations. And neither of them have revealed what their identity is, but they clearly know what they're talking about. And it's just so interesting to read. And that's the only thing I'm gutted about this trial is that it isn't public. I actually think this should be public. We should get daily updates. It should be recorded because I am genuinely intrigued to listen to the detail as opposed to just hearing a verdict, if that makes sense. But even with the evidence, as you mentioned it earlier, I think it's such a great point. There is, according to I read an article in the Independent today, lots of the missing evidence from the CAS and the UEFA case that CAS basically said, well, you can't prove this, or there isn't further evidence of this, therefore we can't rule in its favor, is now available according to this case. And that's what I find so interesting about it. So it's, as you say, I sort of sit there and I feel like part of me feels there is no smoke without fire. Could there really be, and I'm not saying 115 because about 30 or 40 of them about non-compliant. A few of them are about the grass. Could there be 40 to 50 charges that are absolutely baseless with zero evidence to them? I don't personally see the Premier League doing that.
Well, what it is, yeah, because that thing about the grass as well, that's not true. That was that was a myth that was put out on day one because someone read the wrong rule book. But so just to clarify, what's basically happened is, yeah, the Premier League is saying that Sheikh Mansour put money into Etihad, which then put money into Manchester City, and that the sponsorship wasn't legit. Etihad only paid part of it. If that's true, then we break FFP because then you got to redo the figures, and when you redo the figures, City have broken FFP. If it's so basically everything's just a consequence. That all these charges are basically all just a consequence of if this one thing gets proved to be like a fraud, the whole house of cards falls down, right? Yes. But if that one thing is fine, then there's no FFP breach, so the FFP thing is irrelevant.
No, I totally agree, and I think that's why I've said all along. Do I believe there's no smoke without fire? No, I believe you've probably done some things wrong. However, I think if you forensically examine most football clubs, you could find things that are wrong, or it could be interpreted wrong against the rules. What I've always been very open to is a severity. If it turns out that intentionally or unintentionally, you put £5 million extra into the club that shouldn't have been there, that has had no real effect on where you are now as a football club. And for me, that is a fine. That is a slap on the wrist. That is a please don't do it again as an example. You'll probably then get a little bit in trouble for the non-cooperation. If it turns out 500 million has been pumped into the club in the early stages and you've grown from that, that's when I even think the non-compliant rule breaks will carry more severe punishments, because it's obvious why you weren't complying, because the crime, as it were, was a lot bigger. So, yeah, look, I'm open.
If they're found innocent, right, and they literally get their non-compliant fine, and that's it, but they've done nothing else wrong, City fans are going to go nuts, right? Like, are they going to want like repercussions against the Premier League and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. You know what I mean? Like, yes, if we're guilty, like, we have to deal with the punishment, and we'll see what that is at the time. And obviously, that's when the rival fans will go sick, and understandable if they want to do that. But the flip side, you've got to be fair and say, well, if City do get found not guilty, City fans are going to be then fuming, because we've had this for fucking like the last 6 years, basically. So, like, what happened when it was at UEFA, when we won the case at CAS? City basically put out a statement, and it was like a bit of a jointy style statement, and basically said, oh, this represents like a new era of Manchester City's relationship with UEFA. We're all nicey again, right? And it was just like, we just kind of went like, whatever. I've said this for some time. City fans ain't just going to accept that if it's the Premier League, if with the Premier League, man. They're going to have to do something. What they do, I don't know.
Do you know what? One theory I've got about that, though, I agree. If this is a witch hunt, certain people's heads have got to roll, and I've said that all along. And again, if what Khaldun has said is true, and there is unequivocal, undeniable evidence, and if we give an example, you know, LB's up on a charge for burglary on my house, but he has CCTV 4K footage of him sitting in his living room watching EastEnders at the exact same time in another city. That's what I consider to be unequivocal evidence. You can't deny it. So if City have something of that level, whoever has pushed this internally, their heads have got to roll. But the one thing the Premier League has got to probably protect itself, and I've heard a few lawyers say this, is, well, they've decided we only asked to investigate based on the leaks. You didn't comply. If you did just show this evidence day one, you wouldn't have ever been charged. It wouldn't have been a witch hunt. So I think that the Premier League has probably got an out on that level by saying, well, all we asked you to do was show us your emails, show us your trading accounts, show us the bank statements. I'm just making this little bit up. We don't know what they're going to say yet. But you said your legal team said don't comply. Because you didn't comply and we believe something could be true, it's led to this point. So, yeah, listen, that's why it's great it started, I think, because all banter aside, as I've stated, they are unequivocally innocent, City. I'll stand shoulder to shoulder and say, well, they haven't done that wrong. You've got to prove it. You can't just make these accusations. If they have done something wrong to a major level, again, I've said this for such a long time, this is the biggest off-field footballing situation, I think, in the history of our game in this country. And it rewrites a decade or so of our history. It rewrites little things. I'm not even talking about the trophies for a moment. Like I've done it. I've held City in such high regard for how well they're run. It changes that. It changes even maybe how some of us look at our own clubs, because there are Liverpool fans that think, oh, we don't do enough. But what if it turns out you did do enough, but the only team doing more than you did it in a dodgy way? So I think there's so many ramifications, but that stuff isn't really worth delving into any more detail on until we start to hear things. Terry spent a bag of coin on his hair. Why is he wearing a cap indoors? Because I haven't done my hair today, bruv. I got that privilege. Where I didn't do it today. Do you know what I mean? I was out walking the dog and it was a bit messy. But thanks, Ray. JRD. Thank you for caring about my hair and my hat, my friend. I like it. Super chat here. Excuse me. Says, Terry, as a Madrid fan, Barca fans for years have complained about Madrid winning ugly. That's all my Barca friends talk about. It's interesting. It's just jealousy, isn't it? I suppose. I mean, this winning ugly thing. I don't think anybody. When you win, you win. I wouldn't care really.
The thing is, right? I felt like City deserved to win the game against Real Madrid last year, right? And in fact, I think the 3 years that we played you in a row, we've been better than you each time. We've only beaten you once out of those three ties. You've beaten us twice. It's irrelevant that City, in my view, was better than you 3 times in a row. We only won one of them. Doesn't matter, does it?
I agree, and I think that's also why. And I've had a few rants about this recently with the sort of mainly trolls online with the be like Real Madrid. It's hard to be. So Real Madrid can get away without having a very defined style of football because they have the ability to literally sign the best players in the world who are a finite commodity. If you think about all the top players at Real Madrid at any one time, how many other players in the world are there that are genuinely on that level of consistency and quality? 1 or 2 maybe in each position, maybe one more, which means you can't all do what Real Madrid do. That's why they shouldn't be used as the benchmark operationally. You want to get there, but it's impossible. It is actually impossible for everybody to get to where Real Madrid are, because there literally isn't enough managers and players of that level to produce 10 Real Madrids. That's why it's such a flawed argument in my humble opinion. It doesn't mean you can't do more though as a club. So again, it's another conversation. Force the City owners to sell like they did Roman. I mean, look, it's a different. I don't know. Listen, it's a different situation because of politics. Listen, you never know. Maybe City fans will want him to sell. It turns out they cheated. No one knows how. City fans don't know how they're going to feel until after the court case. No one knows.
You need to wait until the judgment's out, because then you can see exactly what's happened in it. You know what I mean?
No, it's cool. I've got a friend of mine. I won't name him because he doesn't want it out there. Me and him had a couple of private conversations about this. He's a City fan. It's a lad I used to train with up in Manchester. And his view is, if they've actually cheated and lied the whole way through, he went, I don't think I'd want him here anymore, because it feels like all that amazing achievements they've given me were fake, and I'd almost feel like I've been cheated on. And I get that view, but equally, you've got to wait until the verdict out. LB's spot on.